Bullies broke her glasses, then saw her real face, the revenge story that went viral. An inspiring story by Heartfelt Tales. The cafeteria fell silent as Chen's glasses shattered against the cold linoleum floor, their broken pieces reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights like scattered diamonds. For 3 years, those thick-rimmed glasses had been both her shield and her curse, hiding the secret that would change everything. But as she knelt among the fragments, something shifted in her eyes, something that would make her tormentors wish they had never crossed the quiet girl in the corner. If this story moves you, please take a moment to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales for more inspiring stories like this one. Emma had always been invisible. At Riverside High School, she was the girl who sat in the back corner of every classroom, her oversized glasses creating a barrier between her and the world. While other students chatted and laughed, Emma kept her head down, scribbling in notebooks that no one ever bothered to look at. Her thick, dark-rimmed glasses weren't just a necessity, they had become her identity, defining her as the nerdy girl that everyone ignored or, worse, targeted. The bullying had started small. Whispered comments about her appearance, snickers when she answered questions correctly in class, and the occasional, accidentally, bumped shoulder in the hallway. But as Emma entered her junior year, the harassment escalated. Madison Rivers, the school's self-proclaimed queen bee, had made it her personal mission to make Emma's life miserable. "Look at those bottle-thick glasses," Madison would sneer to her followers. "I bet she can see into next week with those things." The laughter that followed always cut deep, but Emma learned to keep her expression blank, her eyes focused on her books. She had bigger things to worry about than the petty cruelty of teenagers who didn't know the first thing about real struggle. What they didn't know was that Emma worked 3 part-time jobs to help support her family. Her mother, a single parent, worked double shifts at the hospital as a janitor, coming home exhausted every night with aching feet and worried eyes. Emma's younger brother, David, was only 8 years old and needed help with homework, meals, and everything their mother couldn't provide while working to keep their small apartment. The thick glasses weren't a fashion choice, they were all Emma could afford with her meager savings, purchased from a discount optical shop 2 years ago. Every morning, Emma would wake at 5 a.m. to help David get ready for school, pack both their lunches, and walk him to the elementary school before heading to her own classes. After school, she would rush to her first job at the local grocery store, stocking shelves and cleaning floors until 6 p.m. Then it was off to her second job at a small diner, washing dishes and wiping tables until closing time. On weekends, she cleaned offices, her hands raw from chemicals and her back aching from bending over countless desks and floors. But Emma had dreams that extended far beyond the walls of Riverside High School. In her spare moments, she wrote. Not homework assignments or class essays, but stories that poured from her heart onto paper. Stories about overcoming adversity, about finding strength in the darkest moments, about discovering that true beauty comes from within. She had filled dozens of notebooks with her words, each story more powerful than the last. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in October. Emma had stayed late at school to use the computer lab, working on a story that had been consuming her thoughts for weeks. As she gathered her things to leave, Madison and her crew cornered her in the empty hallway. Well, look what we have here," Madison said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It's our favorite little bookworm. What are you still doing here so late? Don't you have some floors to mop?" Emma tried to step around them, but Madison's friends formed a circle, trapping her. "I'm just leaving," Emma said quietly, clutching her notebook to her chest. "Not so fast," Madison said, snatching the notebook from Emma's hands. "What's this?" "Your diary. Let's see what boring thoughts you've been scribbling about." She began flipping through the pages, reading Emma's most personal stories aloud in a mocking voice. "Please give that back," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. But Madison ignored her, continuing to read and laugh at words that had taken Emma months to craft. "Listen to this garbage," Madison sneered. "She actually thinks she's a writer." As if anyone would want to read stories by someone who looks like that. She gestured dismissively at Emma's glasses and simple clothes. That's when something snapped inside Emma. 3 years of silent endurance, 3 years of swallowing her pain and hiding her light, 3 years of letting others define her worth, it all came crashing down in that moment. With a swift motion, she lunged forward to grab her notebook back, but Madison stepped aside, causing Emma to stumble and fall. Her glasses flew from her face, hitting the ground with a sickening crack. The world went blurry, but Emma could still make out Madison's cruel smile as she held the notebook high above her head. "Oops," Madison said with fake concern. "Looks like Four Eyes isn't so four-eyed anymore." For the first time in her life, Emma felt true rage. Not the quiet frustration she had carried for years, but a burning, righteous anger that filled every cell of her body. She stood up slowly, brushing off her knees, and for the first time, looked directly at Madison without the barrier of her glasses. What Madison saw in that moment made her take a step back. Without the thick lenses obscuring her features, Emma's eyes were revealed to be the most stunning shade of emerald green, large and expressive and blazing with intelligence and determination. Her face, no longer hidden behind oversized frames, showed delicate features and natural beauty that had been concealed for years. But it wasn't Emma's physical transformation that made Madison and her friends fall silent. It was the confidence that suddenly radiated from her, the way she stood taller, the way her voice carried new strength when she finally spoke. "You know what, Madison?" Emma said, her voice clear and steady. "You can mock my glasses, you can laugh at my clothes, you can try to tear down my dreams. But you can't take away who I really am." She stepped forward, and Madison actually backed up. "You see these notebooks you love to make fun of? One of the stories I wrote in them just won a national writing contest. The prize money is going to help my family, and the scholarship is going to take me to college, far away from small-minded people like you." The hallway was dead silent now. Emma reached down and carefully picked up the pieces of her broken glasses, cradling them in her palm. "These glasses have been my shield for 3 years. They helped me hide from people who were too shallow to see past the surface. But I don't need to hide anymore." She looked directly at Madison, her green eyes unwavering. "You want to know the real difference between us? I know who I am without these glasses, without any external validation. I know my worth comes from the kindness I show others, the dreams I'm brave enough to pursue, and the strength I've built from overcoming real challenges. But you? You're so insecure that you have to tear others down to feel good about yourself. That's not strength, that's weakness." Madison's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Her friends looked uncomfortable, suddenly finding the floor very interesting. Emma took her notebook back from Madison's limp grip. "I forgive you," she said simply. "But I won't be your victim anymore. And maybe, someday, you'll find the courage to be as real as the stories I write." With that, Emma walked away, leaving Madison and her crew standing in stunned silence. She could see well enough to navigate the hallways. Her vision wasn't as bad as the thick glasses made it seem. She had worn them as much for protection as for sight, a barrier that had served its purpose but was no longer needed. Word of the confrontation spread through Riverside High School like wildfire. But something unexpected happened. Instead of more mockery, Emma found herself surrounded by support. Students who had witnessed years of bullying finally spoke up. Teachers who had noticed her quiet strength began encouraging her writing. The story she had mentioned to Madison really had won a national contest, and when the news broke, Emma became something of a local celebrity. The scholarship from the writing contest was substantial, enough to help Emma pursue her dreams of becoming a published author. But more importantly, it gave her family the financial breathing room they desperately needed. Emma was able to reduce her work hours and focus more on her studies and writing. Without her glasses, Emma discovered confidence she never knew she possessed. She joined the school newspaper, started a creative writing club, and began tutoring younger students who reminded her of her former self, quiet, overlooked, but full of untapped potential. Madison, meanwhile, found herself increasingly isolated. Without Emma as a target, her cruel behavior became more obvious to everyone around her. Some of her former friends began to distance themselves, uncomfortable with the person they had been enabling. Madison was forced to confront the reality that her power had come from putting others down, and without that, she had very little left. But Emma surprised everyone, including Madison, when she approached her former tormentor one day after English class. "I meant what I said about forgiving you," Emma said quietly. "If you ever want to talk, I'm here." Madison looked at her with confusion and something that might have been shame. "Why would you want to help me? After everything I did to you?" Emma smiled, and without her glasses, her whole face lit up. "Because hurt people hurt people. And I think there's more to you than the person you've been pretending to be." It took months, but eventually, Madison did take Emma up on her offer. She revealed the pressure she felt to maintain her image, the insecurities that drove her to tear others down, and the fear that without her cruel confidence, she would be as invisible as she had made Emma feel. Emma helped Madison discover her own hidden talents. She was actually a gifted artist, with a sensitivity that she had buried under layers of defensive cruelty. With Emma's encouragement, Madison began expressing herself through art rather than aggression. The transformation wasn't instant or easy. Madison had to face the consequences of years of bullying, had to apologize to countless people she had hurt, and had to rebuild relationships based on authenticity rather than fear. But with Emma's guidance and friendship, she slowly became someone she could be proud of. As senior year approached, Emma had changed in ways that went far beyond her appearance. She had been accepted to a prestigious university on both academic and creative writing scholarships. Her first short story collection was being published by a small press, with all proceeds going to a fund she had established to help students from low-income families pursue their educational dreams. But perhaps the most remarkable change was in how she saw herself and others. The girl who had once hidden behind glasses now stood tall in her own skin, confident in her worth and generous with her gifts. She had learned that true strength isn't about hiding from the world or striking back at those who hurt you. It's about choosing courage, kindness, and authenticity even when it's hard. On graduation day, as Emma stood at the podium to deliver the valedictorian speech, she looked out at the sea of faces in the audience. Her mother sat in the front row, tears of pride streaming down her face. David, now 11 and already showing signs of his sister's intelligence and character, beamed up at her. And scattered throughout the crowd were the dozens of students Emma had tutored, encouraged, and inspired over the past 2 years. 3 years ago, Emma began, her voice clear and strong. "I thought I knew who I was. I was the quiet girl, the one with thick glasses who sat in the back and hoped not to be noticed. I thought my value came from being invisible, from not causing trouble, from accepting whatever treatment others decided I deserved." She paused, looking directly at Madison, who sat with her family, her own artwork displayed proudly in the graduation ceremony program. "But I learned something important. We are not defined by how others see us, or even by how we see ourselves in our weakest moments. We are defined by our choices, the choice to be kind when the world is cruel, to be brave when it's easier to hide, to lift others up when we've been knocked down ourselves." Emma's voice grew stronger as she continued. "Some of you know that I spent years working multiple jobs to help support my family. Some of you know that I was bullied for my appearance, my background, my dreams. But what I want you to remember isn't the hardship, it's what we chose to do with it." She gestured to Madison, who looked surprised to be acknowledged. "I want to thank someone who taught me one of life's most important lessons, though she probably didn't mean to. Madison Rivers showed me that even our enemies can become our teachers, and that forgiveness isn't just something we give to others, it's something we give to ourselves." The audience was silent, hanging on every word. So as we leave here today and go out into a world that will try to put us in boxes, that will judge us by our appearance or our circumstances or our past mistakes, I want to challenge each of you. Don't hide behind your glasses, literal or metaphorical. Don't let others define your worth. And don't be afraid to take them off and show the world who you really are. Emma's eyes found her mother in the crowd, then David, then the faces of all the students she had mentored. Because when we have the courage to be authentic, when we choose kindness over cruelty and understanding over judgment, we don't just change ourselves, we change everyone around us. We create ripples of hope that spread far beyond what we can see. As Emma concluded her speech, the entire auditorium erupted in applause. But more than the applause, more than the scholarships or the published stories or the awards, what mattered most to Emma was the look in her little brother's eyes, the look that said he saw her not as the girl who had been knocked down, but as the woman who had chosen to rise. After the ceremony, as Emma packed up her childhood bedroom to leave for college, she found her old notebooks, the ones filled with stories that had sustained her through the darkest days. She smiled as she read her earliest attempts at writing, seeing in them the seeds of everything she had become. On the very last page of her oldest notebook, she wrote a final entry. To anyone reading this who feels invisible, who feels defined by others' limitations, who wears their own version of thick glasses to hide from the world, you are not your circumstances. You are not others' opinions. You are not your fears or your mistakes or your moments of weakness. You are your choices, your dreams, your capacity for growth and love and courage. Take off the glasses. Let them see who you really are. The world needs your light. Emma closed the notebook and packed it carefully in her suitcase. She had learned that sometimes the most powerful transformation isn't about changing who you are, it's about having the courage to reveal who you've been all along. Years later, Emma would become a best-selling author whose books would inspire millions of readers around the world. Madison would become a renowned artist whose work explored themes of redemption and human connection. Both would speak at schools and conferences about the power of second chances and the importance of looking beyond surface appearances. But on that graduation day, as 18-year-old Emma Chen walked across the stage to accept her diploma, she was simply a girl who had learned that true vision has nothing to do with what glasses you wear, it has everything to do with how clearly you choose to see yourself and others. The quiet girl with the thick glasses was gone forever. In her place stood a young woman who knew that her greatest strength had never been her ability to hide, it had been her refusal to let the world's cruelty make her cruel in return. Thank you for joining us for another inspiring story here on Heartfelt Tales. If Emma's journey resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had a moment where you found the courage to show your true self? Share your story with our community, your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story moved you, please take a moment to hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear Emma's message. Your support helps us continue creating content that celebrates the power of resilience, kindness, and authentic courage. And don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest inspiring stories. We publish new content every week, each one designed to remind you that no matter what challenges you're facing, you have the strength to overcome them and the power to create positive change in the world. Until next time, remember, you are not defined by how others see you, but by the courage you show in being authentically, beautifully yourself. Keep shining your light, and thank you for being part of the Heartfelt Tales family.